This is Colorado quarterback Shedeur Sanders.
Really interesting profile because you have a pocket passer who doesn't necessarily have the craziest arm strength, but also has a lot of toughness inside the pocket, create a little bit outside the pocket, and is actually really smart distributing the football as well. So it just, to me, it comes down to, I think that there's a threshold you have to meet to win in the playoffs. Can he win in the playoffs? I'm not sure about that, but I do think you have somebody that plays the position at a pretty high level.
Yeah, there are stretches of games where you see the vision of what he will be in the NFL, pre snap intelligence to post snap success, being a distributor to multiple windows and on time to make those throws. The issues, which we will definitely dive into during this video, is that this would only last for quarters and to me, not entire games. I will add that this past season, he led all of the FBS in completion percentage, and Shador is so freaking tough back there in the pocket. Took so many massive shots and at the same time doesn't put the ball in harm's way in
Yep.
terms of turnover worthy plays. That rate for him was at 1.3% over the last 2 years, which is just absurdly low.
Yeah, it really is. I think a little bit of that's because of how much screen production in this Colorado offense there is. But yeah, he throws the ball over the middle. Like that's like a positive for him. And you don't see like a lot of players at his stature. He's only 6'1", with the ability to do that. I thought his accuracy and his touch, especially touches on these hole shots. You do see that cover two hole shots. You see some nice seam passes where he throws with some anticipation. Now it's anticipation throwing the ball to Travis Hunter, who comes down with basically everything. So really interesting with him. I think the accuracy and the toughness and the decision making, and it's more like risk averse decision making. I think all of that stuff gives you like a foundation of what he's gonna be like at the best of this in the NFL, and if he is not this, it looks like Joe Burrow. I think that there's a lot of things that Shedeur Sanders has to improve on to get to that level. But I think that's a style offense where you're going to want a lot of quick hitting throws, a lot of screen production, some RPO stuff. You're not going to get all the athleticism from some of the other quarterbacks that can also do that. But if you can throw the ball over the middle with some touch, that at least gives you a path to being an NFL starter.
Okay, there's a lot to talk about here. I first want to say that I think it's a legit credit to him that Colorado went 9-4 this year. Even going back to 2023, I believe that Colorado, just reviewing all the tapes, all of them, was in an absolutely terrible spot over the last 2 seasons. And if you look back at 2023, an even worse position than they were this past year in terms of talent. And he led 3 game-winning drives his first season with the Colorado Buffaloes. And then for the rest of 2023 and including 2024, the offensive line to me was like an absolute mess. They couldn't pick up stunts. Tackles and centers were absolutely terrible. The run game was non existent. Receivers, while might be individually talented, were in like really different spots and running into each other. Travis Hunter, as we've talked about in his profile, hopefully you all watch that and subscribe to the channel. We know he's a total freak, but we also know that he didn't practice with the offense full time and his route tree was very basic, as we talked about. So to me, a lot of the situation that he was in, I think there was a lot of snowballing going on with like one bad thing with his right tackle getting beat or his left tackle or, the games not being picked up on the interior, that when he didn't excel on the plays where everything else was clean or smash those, then man, those really stood out as major negatives. But at the same time, I tried to take like a zoomed out view of, okay, for the last series or the last 4 plays, this thing he tried to overcome or this one and this one. And then it was all on his plate for this singular snap and it didn't work. And so to me, just overall, he did not have like the platform to succeed in that many of the quarterbacks that we've talked about this year and have talked about in previous years too.
I do agree. Yeah, the offensive line was miserable, and I don't think that the offensive coordinator did him a whole lot of favors either. They like truly only ran like 10 different plays. And what was interesting about that, zero under center dropbacks this last year. They used 2 tight end sets on 3 dropbacks. 73% of their dropbacks had 4+ wide receivers on the field, even sometimes 5 wide receivers on the field.
Right.
They only huddled on 30% of their dropbacks. They rarely faced base defense. And I think that's to me where I get a little bit confused about like he's pro ready day one, like ready to go. I'm not sure, man. That offense threw a lot of screens, a lot of hitch routes, this big Y cross route, which Travis Hunter was excellent at. I didn't see like a huge like depth of plays in this offense. And a lot of the stuff that I just mentioned there is kind of the opposite of where like the NFL is currently right now. You're seeing a lot of 12 personnel. You're definitely at the best of it. Some under center dropbacks. You don't see his head turn to go away from the defense very often. So I think all those things are pretty severe question marks. And at the same time, the offensive line was bad. You were throwing to the best wide receiver in the game, and the strength of schedule versus other drafted quarterbacks was in the bottom 32nd percentile. So it's like lots to like try to like translate what we saw in college, which was definitely good, and like just changing the whole program deserves a lot of credit in doing that. But I do think that there was like also a big transition issue that we're gonna have to get to as we try to project him, not just what he did in college, but also what's going to happen once you get to the big leagues.
Yeah, I liked his 2023 stuff way more. And I don't know if that's a common thought. I just thought he was so much more decisive, especially on third downs in 2023, even though their record was far worse. And to me, he threw with more anticipation out of his wide receiver breaks, like on time. And he showed that, like, I'm going to get stuck in. I'm going to sit in this confined space and hit my back foot and like work in this compressed space more often in 2023. Again, before like all the accumulation of that season, and then almost immediately in 2024, you saw a guy that was going to try to drift out of space. You saw a guy who, didn't take his linear drop and then try to work in this confined spot. He just, I think, kind of knew that my clock needs to be sped up here if this team is going to have success. And then on a lot of occasions, that was true. Some occasions, he definitely put way more pressure on his offensive line on top of it. So it's like a give and take. I am not saying it was all his offensive line's fault. I am also saying, yes, it is the offensive structure's fault, because if you don't have a running game and you struggle to protect, why not bring in more players for protection and like play an actual tight end? And they just simply
They
never
didn't have
did.
one. Yeah.
Yeah. And then this is also a system that to me is though more pro ready than like an Ole Miss or a Tennessee, where it's not, I mean, it wasn't spread outside the numbers. We're going to throw go balls, slants, and curls. Like there was legit middle of the field route running and reading coverages and against zone coverage, hitting second window throws. And to me, he did that on a pretty good level.
He did have 102 screen receptions, which is the most in the Power Five conference. So
Well, but
that
you have to
explains.
throw screens when your offensive line can't
Right.
protect.
Right. I was only just saying that because when you're taking some of his numbers, you have to remove a lot of production with that. When you don't have the screens, you don't have the RPOs, 7.3 yards per drop back. He was in the 72nd percentile in terms of EPA per play out there. So we're talking about definitely not a tier one guy in terms of what the analytics are showing. And I do think projection of like pro ready and what I saw in that offense, I just did not see a bunch of plays that you'll see in the NFL. Now, I will say Shedeur Sanders does throw the ball with touch over the middle, and that's something we talk about on this channel a lot. If you can throw the ball intermediate and over the middle, that's like the best, most valuable play in football, and he was able to do that. But it was with four wide receivers on the field for a lot of it. To me, the biggest
Right.
thing with Shedeur Sanders, if he drifts the way he did in college, it's a wrap. You can't play in the National Football League with his athletic traits and his lackluster arm if you're going to be running into pressure, and that's what he did in terms of EPA loss due to sacks. Bottom fifth percentile among drafted quarterbacks. So we're talking about somebody at the very, very bottom of this. You can mention the offensive line, definitely, but there are too many reps where he's floating into pressure, retreating backwards, and he doesn't have the ability, the Josh Allen, Mahomes, where when they do that, they're getting up and out of there as well. And I think some of the times when he was breaking a couple of tackles, I'm just not sure if he's going to be able to do that. He's just not strong enough compared to NFL players. And I do think when he was drifting, sometimes he was drifting towards the direction he was going to be throwing the ball to. And I think all of that stuff is what makes me super, super nervous about Shedeur Sanders going to the next level.
I am not disputing what you're saying about the drifting, and I'm not disputing what you're saying about the lack of athleticism. Like he believes he's way more dynamic than he actually is. I do think he can be quite strong in the pocket and like shed the first tackler, but then it was often the second guy when he believes I can get to the edge or I can get to the
Yeah.
sideline and create yards with my feet. No, you can't. Someone's going to come behind you and just tackle you for a sack when you should either be throwing away this football or gaining yards. And then I also agree with you that he doesn't have the arm to compensate for bad decisions that we see with a bunch of top tier quarterbacks out
Yeah.
there. I will say, I think if he goes to a average offense in the NFL with an average league average offensive line and a good play caller, then to me you will see more success than actually what he showed at Colorado, because again, to me his best stuff is recognizing pre-snap of which direction he needs to look in and recognize what the leverage is on the field. I guess I just have taken a zoomed out view of, okay, why is he drifting? Because when I first turned on the 2023 stuff, he wasn't drifting nearly as much as he did in 2024. I'm not saying that drifting is a good thing. I am saying I am siding on his side of maybe why he was forced to do it this year, because legitimately, they couldn't pick up shit. It was like watching the Houston Texans offensive line this year. And there's a reason why that like CJ Stroud went from top 10 in EPA and completion percentage over expectation during his rookie year. And this past season, he finished like bottom 5 in that. And it's because of like the system that you're in, the surrounding cast that you're in, and how that impacts you both in individual plays and how it impacts you and how you play the game. I didn't expect it going into it, but I just thought like the environment that Shedeur was in was absolutely terrible. And that also led to him having some individual terrible decisions and terrible plays.
Yeah, that's the story you're gonna have to tell if you're gonna be taking him in the first round. And I would just say, go watch some of the Travis Hunter receptions down the field where those are like 50-50 balls. And I think there was a lot of crutches with just, hey, I'm just gonna throw it up there. And some of these
Totally.
wide crosses, he's just throwing it super early. And the ball, and I love Shedeur Sanders, how much flight he puts on the ball. So you can let your guys go make a play. And Travis
Underthrown
Hunter,
stuff.
yeah, but at the same time, sometimes he could have scored a touchdown if you put it with a little bit more velocity or a little bit more downfield ability. I think the big thing with Shador's arm strength to me was when he's got his cleats in the ground and is playing in rhythm inside the
Yeah.
pocket, he can make all the throws. Like there's definitely some throws to the sideline, nice hole shots. You see some passes up the seam against cover two. He can make those plays inside the pocket when his feet are underneath him. The second he doesn't have his feet underneath him, he's on the move. That's where you see the arm strength completely go down to like close to zero. And I think that's where like the best players in the NFL at this position, they are electric throwing the ball on the run and stuff. And Shador Sanders did that at times, but a lot of the stuff down the field when he was trying to do that, I think those can turn into interceptions rather than completions to Travis Hunter.
I honestly believe he's going to be a product of kind of the environment he goes to. I don't know if he's really going to be able to elevate that much around him. And then he will, get decelerated because of the people around him too. Like he's going to thrive mostly on quick game, West Coast stuff, timing, and pre snap winning equals post snap winning. I can see that with to be honest, I'm not saying in the top 5, but a Kevin Stefanski esque offense where you do hit the back foot and based on, again, coverage leverage and the timing and the rhythm of the offense, that's where we know he's supposed to throw the football. Like that is what Stefanski's MO is. There are certain offenses that's going to fit with, but then I don't know if you build an offense around like the strengths and weaknesses of Shedeur Sanders. To me, it's going to be the strengths and weaknesses of the play caller that is at his disposal and that he is working under that is going to lead him along with the offensive line, the pass catching weapons around him.
Yeah, I see it similarly. I think maybe even more nervous that the sack problem and just we'll have to see
But the
what it
sack
looks like.
problem, man, this offensive line was so brutal,
Yeah.
like beyond brutal. The Nebraska game was so bad. It literally was like watching what Caleb Williams went through this year with the Chicago Bears, what Bryce Young went through during his rookie season, that on so many third downs, so many first downs, he legitimately like didn't have a chance. And that did lead to some bad habits this year. And I am just, I guess, more optimistic that in a better situation, those bad habits won't be as apparent and that he will trust his surroundings a little bit more when his surroundings are much better than what he had the Colorado Buffaloes this year.
Yeah, maybe you're right. I wouldn't draft him in the first round. I can't do it. I'm a big quarterbacks guy. You got to take the chance. I just see to me more of a either replacement level starter or a quality backup. And I think in a very structured timing based offense. And I just don't see how this type of profile, like how you can compete in the playoffs. And I'm trying to find some upside. And I've talked about that with on this channel about a lot of quarterbacks. And I just don't see the path of him pulling off an upset against Lamar Jackson, Mahomes, and all those type of guys, even on the rookie deal. So we'll see. I think you have to make the projection that the sack production's got to get way, way, way better. I think the drifting's the big factor there. Have to also acknowledge how few plays Colorado actually ran.
I also think part of that is as much as we do love Travis Hunter, is that when your number one pass catcher is not even practicing on offense and you feature him on so many snaps, then how can you build an offense with that?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to
It's just
give
weird to
these
say about
Colorado
like a first
coaches.
round guy like that. There's just not a whole lot of plays. Like that's just an interesting thing to like have to acknowledge with the profile. You just
Yeah.
don't hear
Yeah,
about that
yeah,
all the
yeah.
time.
But I don't know if like that is a Shador Sanders problem. Like to me, he was highly intelligent as
Oh
a
yeah.
quarterback back there in terms of
Oh yeah.
like deciphering stuff. To me, it was just the offensive infrastructure that was around him was quite miserable. I mean, it was shocking to me how bad it was. I do have a couple notes I want to throw out there because during his pro day, Andre Cisco who I think is a safety now. I can't remember with the team. And then some other people mentioned like he was patting the football. Plenty of the top quarterbacks out there pat the football before he threw it. I will add in 2024, it did almost take him like an extra beat or an extra hitch to
Yeah.
sometimes see these open window wide receivers rather than throw with, to me, as much anticipation as he did in 2023 versus 2024. Like in 2023, those guys were even before hitting the zones and the open windows, and he would throw it. Whereas in 2024, they'd have a step or two, and then he was willing to make that throw. So while I'm not necessarily on the side with, tapping the football means the safety is going to intercept it, I do think he took a little extra moment and a little extra beat when it came to holding onto the football versus
Mhm.
releasing it ahead of time.
Yeah, I saw the same thing. I think usually he was playing on time, but there was a little bit of his where he would slide a little bit to the side he's going to be throwing the ball to and then release it, which I don't think that you're going to have the luxury of doing when the pocket size gets much smaller. When like your left tackle and right tackle are holding on for dear life, they give you 2.5 seconds to throw. Any extra hitch in your game when you're at 6 foot, 210, which is undersized, all that stuff's going to matter at the next level.
And he did have like the fourth longest time to throw this year in terms of holding on to the football. But again, I think it's to the drifting and trying to escape the pocket, as we talked about. And I will add that just 16.4% of his passes this season traveled to the intermediate range. It's kind of what we're talking about, the 10 to 19 yard, where this offense was a lot of short passes
Yep.
to mitigate the pass rush, and then also the vertical shots to Travis Hunter or whoever else. That was 50th among 52 qualifying quarterbacks in this draft class. It was slightly higher in 2023, but again, to me, this wasn't an offense that like just naturally generated a lot of explosive plays, a lot of gimmies for the quarterback that we do see with some college offenses out there.
Last note I had is just the rushing stuff, quarterback design carries. He had a couple zone read attempts, but if you actually watch those, it's almost to like throw the ball out to space, and he ended up just kind of carrying the ball. There's zero quarterback design stuff from him, like literally zero. So if you think Deion Sanders' son, he can give you a little bit of scrambling, but like
He's not dynamic.
zero quarterback
Yeah.
run stuff, which is it's tough. It's the NFL right now. Like the modern NFL quarterbacks, these guys are total freaks in every single way. At least like the top 5 to 10
That's going to do it for us.
are.
If you want to check out other prospect profiles on the channel, which you should, we have a whole bunch of them on running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. Do that. Click subscribe, hit the thumbs up, and watch another video.
If you like a pocket passer with zero career snaps under center, below average arm strength, and runs into the edge rusher, then you're going to love Shedeur
Wow.
Sanders. No, I'm joking. Let's restart it.